Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about subnetting. Now, why exactly would we want to subnet a network? Well, let's take, for example, one of the private IP spaces that we have, which is 10.0.0.0/8. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with CIDR notation, CIDR, CIDR notation. This right here is CIDR notation, just this slash line notation. This is just another way of writing the subnet of a network. So for this is the same thing as writing 255.0.0.0. Same exact thing, just kind of a shorthand way of writing it for IT professionals. Generally speaking, in Windows and in operating systems, you will probably be using the subnet directly. In some applications will actually accept CIDR notation, so you'll just have to kind of figure that out as you go. But if you ever see that, it's the exact same thing. So this network has quite a number of IPs on it. It's I believe it's 16,777,000 plus IPs on that one network. Now that is an absolute management nightmare. Plus, if everybody is on the same network, that's a huge broadcast range. And if you have everybody broadcasting their traffic, it's just going to be a nightmare. So that's one of the reasons that we cut this down. We want to kind of limit them down to as many IP addresses as you need. Maybe a little in real life, maybe a little extra for growth. So for servers and such, you might have a specific amount of servers that you know you're going to have, and you're not really planning on outgrowing that. But for, let's say, for like an HR VLAN or an HR network, you might have a little extra for growth. You might know that that department is going to be growing, and so you want to make sure that there's enough IPs in that range to expand. So this is one of the reasons that we subnetted, so we can cut down the number of IPs that are on a specific network, leading to easier management and better security. So we're actually going to be working with a little bit of an easier network than this. So we're gonna start off with a nice easy /24. So we're going to do a 192.168.100.0/24. Now again, what is a /24 in CIDR notation? /24 is equal to 255.255.255.0. Same thing. /24 is the same thing as a 255.255.255.0. So what does this mean? What does this give us? As far as IPs, this is going to give us 192.168.100.0 through 192.168.100.255. Now, how many IP addresses is that? Now, a lot of you probably your first thought is to say that there's 255 IP addresses. It's incorrect in both cases. There's actually two answers to this. Okay, so first off, always need to remember to count the 0 as your first one. So 0 would be in your first through 255 is actually 256 IPs. So it's 256 IPs. Now, are all of those IPs actually usable? No. There are only 254 usable IPs. Now, why is that? Well, the first IP address of any network is going to be the network ID. So you'll have your net ID. It's going to be 192.168.100.0. And then your last IP address in a network is going to be your broadcast. So broadcast going to be 192.168.100.255. So those are going to be the two IP addresses that are in the network but are not usable. You can't actually apply .0 or .255 to a specific server or workstation that's on that network. So that's an important thing to keep in mind, that the number of IPs that are on the network versus the number of usable IP on the network are always, let's call this n. This is always n minus, n minus 2. So you might have seen that formula before, but that's important to note the difference between the number of IPs on a network and the number of usable IPs on a network. As you're probably familiar, all computers, all switches and routers and anything technical, for the time being at least, speaks in binary, speaks in ones and zeros. So let's go ahead and switch over to a new color, shall we? We have speaks in binary. Now, binary is generally considered either on or off, right? Either a 1 or a 0. Or you can also, in this specific instance, we're going to think of this in two other ways, okay? We're going to see one as network. Just, again, keep this in mind for now. We'll go into, I'll explain why this is the case. We're going to see the 1 as a network. We'll see the 0 as a host. This is going to be in your subnet mask. You're also going to see a 1. You're going to see this as unchangeable change. This is what I call it: unchange and change. This will be in your IP address. So again, on and off, binary is on and off, is 1 and 0, or more specifically to subnet masks is going to be network and host. And then once we start talking about our IP address, we'll start talking about how certain parts of it can't change or won't change, and then how certain parts of it will change. So yeah, let's dive into this real quick. So with this IP address and this subnet mask, how do I know that there's only 256 IP addresses in this network? Well, let's take a look. So we have, let's go over here. 192.168.100.0, right? So that's our network ID. And then we have our subnet mask, which is 255.255.255.0. Now, what's the purpose? Let's take a quick step back. What is the purpose of our subnet mask? Our subnet mask does literally two things. And I really wish that somebody had told me this when I was first starting to get into IT and starting to understand networking and all. The subnet mask does two things. One, it tells us where the network is when it comes to this IP address. This by itself, when you're looking at 192.168.100.0, can you tell where the network is? Let's say I have an IP address like this. .27. I have a 192.168.100.27. Do you know where the network starts? Do you know how big this network is? There's no way of telling. The only way to tell is using the subnet mask. So all the subnet mask does is it tells us where the network starts, and then where the hosts are in the network ID, or in the network. That's all it does, is it splits up the network portion of the IP address and the host portion of the IP. So in our example of the 192.168.100.27, this would be the network portion, and this would be the host ID. And again, we'll get into this. We'll get into how this works in just a second. But I just want to let you know that's literally all the subnet mask is doing. I think it's a really important point that I think sometimes slips through the cracks. It doesn't always get across. But that's all that the subnet mask does is tells us where the network is and what the host is, where the hosts are. So we have this network ID, we have this subnet mask. Now the subnet mask, as well as the IP address, can be broken down into its binary part. So if you're not familiar with binary, I love this little cheat sheet over here. And I always need this cheat sheet. So when if I'm doing subnetting by hand, I need to write this down. So don't feel bad if you ever need to do this. So each one of these sections in an IP address is called an octet. And the reason it's called an octet is because it's created using an 8-bit binary number. And so 8-bit binary means that there's just 8 ones and zeros within the section. So that would be created using, let's see, 1, 2, let me write this a little bigger for you guys. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So those are our 8 binary digits. So the way you would count in binary is, well, if we were counting in 8 bits, let's do that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is 3, and so on and so forth. So that's how we count within binary. So if we take a look at these numbers, well, if you add all of these up together, with a 1 on the end, you know you're going to get an odd number. So if you add all these up, you're going to get 255. You can do it yourself, but just trust me, it's equal to 255. So keeping that in mind, when we write this out in binary, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. 4, 5, 6, 8. 1, 2, 3. So this is our subnet mask. 255, 55, 255, and that's 0. Cool. Now, IP addresses are a little more complicated because they usually don't have 255 in it. Sometimes don't have 0 in it, but let's see if we can do this. So, put red so you guys can see a little bit better. So going through this, we have 192.168.100.0, and so this is going to be our network. So to get the binary of this number, basically just go across, go backwards this way, and figure out what goes into 192. So it's 128 go into 192, yes. So we're going to start off with 1. That leaves what? That leaves like 70 something, right? So 70 something go into 64, yes. And then we have is it actually 64? Oh, it's actually 64. Yeah, right? Yeah. Because then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. always really bad with the math and binary, but the 168 comes out to 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, right? And then 100 comes out to, and I actually have this written down, so I'm just going to roll through it real quick, but you guys can check this yourselves as well. So yeah, so if you take this, you take the first bit, this 128 going 192, yes, turn it on. What's left over, 64, did 64 go into 64, yes, turn it on. Is there anything left? No. Then same thing here is 128 going to 168, yes, turn it on. What's left when you subtract it is what, 40? So 0, 32 going to 40, yes. What's left over is 8 rather. 16 going to 8, no. 8 going to 8, yes, turn it on. 0 0 0, and then so on and so forth. So that was very, very quick, and if you guys have issues with that, please let me know. So for a subnet mask, the subnet mask, as I said, tells you where a network starts and where the hosts begin. So how do we figure that out? Well, for a network, the network is going to be where the ones are. As I said, with the binary, got the binary is on or off, right? 1 or 0, or network host. And that's the key for where we are right now in this conversation. So we take a look and we see where the ones are. Where the ones stop and the zeros start, that is going to be where our network ends. Our network is here, and our hosts begin. So again, when I was talking about, I was also talking about the binary, on or off, ones and zeros, network and host. There's also change and unchanged, and so or unchanged and change. Excuse me. So these are going to be unchanged. These are going to be changed. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, when we take our IP address and put that over here, so it's 1 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 1 0 1 0 1 0 0 0 dot 0 1 1 0 0 1 0 0 dot 0 0 0 0 0 0 0. So in the IP address, when you're looking at an IP address for a system, this is always going to stay the same. This part of the address is always going to stay the same. You're always going to have 192.168.100 on that network. It's always going to be that. The rest of this is going to be able to change because from host to host. So you can have everything from 0 all the way through the 255. 0 through 255. So this can always change. Hopefully that kind of makes sense, but that brings us to the next point of subnetting and actually cutting down this network. So we have a network of 256 usable IP, or of 254 usable IP addresses. But let's say we have 50 users on our network. Okay. So we only have 50 users. Generally speaking, in real life, you're going to when you set up a network and you size the network, you're going to assume a certain amount of growth for that network. However, for a lot of certifications, specifically Cisco certifications, I know when they ask you to do subnetting on the fly, you are asked to do it in a way that specifically limits the number of unused IP addresses. So you're not planning for growth. You're given, here's how many users you have. Give me the smallest subnet you can possibly make that will still fit those users. So for that example, let's say we have 50 users that we want to put on this network. Well, 192.168.100.0, again, this is giving us 254 IP addresses. That's a lot of unused IPs. Yeah, 254 IPs. So, let's say we want to cut this down. Well, how do we do that? Well, as I mentioned before, up here with our subnet, all the ones, wherever the ones are in the binary, is where the network is. So why don't we just turn on one of these ones? Why don't we just turn on the next one? So instead of this, we can turn this guy on and move the network over a bit. Let's try that. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 5, 7. So now we've moved the entire network over one bit. Where does the network portion end? It's where the ones end. Where does the host starts? It starts where the zeros start. So that means that this entire part of this network can now it can't change anymore. This is always going to be this part of the network, and this is always going to be part of the hosts. So what does this subnet look like? So this one's 255.255.255.0, but with this, what happens to the subnet mask? Well, the subnet mask turns into, we already know it's 255, right? 255. But then with this one in the binary, we look up back here, we add this one, the one bit, we turn this guy on, so it turns into 128. And so this up here, 255.255.255.0, we know is a /24. This is a /25. Oops. We'll go ahead and move that over a little bit. So effectively, what did we do here? We cut the entire network in half. Instead of having 256 addresses, we're going to have 129 addresses, I believe it is. Let's figure out how I know that. 129? No, excuse me, 128 addresses. I know that because we have 0, right? So when all these bits are set to 0, it's going to be 0 for the network ID. And then if I turn all of these bits on, it's going to be one less than that last bit. Because once I turn on another bit, it's going to be that guy. So it'll be 127. Means I have 128 IPs. And that's n minus 2, 126 usable. Cool. So now, what does that do to this IP address? How do we figure things out there? Again, you have the 192.168.100.0. However, instead of the network being here, the network is now in this spot. So we have 6, 7. So again, network ends there. So that's why we can only have up to 127 in this IP range. Again, 126 usable IP addresses, it's still a little bit too many. So maybe we can cut that down again. So again, let's try turning one of these extra bits on in the subnet. See what happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So again, where does the host, where does the network end and the hosts begin? The network ends where the ones stop, right there. And the hosts begin where the zeros start. Now, again, what does that do? It cuts the entire network in half. So instead of having 128 addresses, we are going to have 64 addresses, and only 62 of them will be usable. Let's see. Because again, if you start here, you're going to have 0 as your network ID. And then if you turn all of these guys on, it's going to be one less than that guy. So it'll be up to 63, which is a total of 64 IPs. Cool. And so on and so forth. So that's kind of how subnetting works. It's literally just moving the subnet over one way or another. And actually, so 64 IPs, we have 62 usable. That's good with 50. If we went down any lower, we'd actually wouldn't be able to fit all 50 IPs in there. So 64, this would be a perfect size. And again, to show you here, whoops, it's 255, 255, 255, and then we add up these two bits. It's the 128 and 64, which is going to be a 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 6, 7, 8, 9, 192. Yeah. Want to make sure I did my math right. And this will be a /26. Cool. That's about it. That's kind of how subnetting works. You can also go the other direction. So if we wanted to, let's say we wanted to increase the size of this this network, I can do that really quick and show you. So we'll start out here with that 192.168.100.0 through 255 /24, and we're going to move the bit this way. To actually increase the size of the network, which you can do as well. There's definitely valid reasons to do it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So again, where does the network stop and the host begin? It stops where the zeros start. So this will be our network, and this will be our host. Now what does that do? Again, that doubles the amount of IPs that we have. So instead of having 256 IPs, we're going to have 512 IPs and 510 usable. Now, how does that look? Bring this guy down here. 1, 1, 0, 0, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0. Oops, excuse me, nope. I want to make sure I line it up correctly for you guys. 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0. There we go. 7, 8. So again, this part of the octet, the second octet, now becomes part of the network. So what does that mean? That means that we have 192 here. That's always going to stay the same. 168. That's always going to stay the same. Now here we have what starts as 100, but this guy can change. This guy can become either turn off or turn on. So that means that this can be either 100 or 101. And then this is everything from 0 through 255. So we could, this network, this entire subnet is actually everything from 192.168.100.0 through 192.168.101.255. And that's why we double the amount of IPs, because now we have essentially 2/24s in one. And this is actually going to be a /23 going in the opposite direction. I think that's it. Again, I know this is a lot. It's a little tough to communicate this over just over a video. I normally like to have a conversation with people when explaining this, because there are always questions that arise that I don't know to hit on. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'd love to answer them and try and make a better video next time. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope this was informative for you.